The Psychology of the Solar Plexus and Subconscious Mind by Julius Seton, M.D. Chapter 4. The Subconscious Mind. There have been so many things written about the subconscious mind, its use and power, that the student must wander in a maze of uncertainty and confusion unless he can be turned back into the straight path of research. It is time for higher revelation on this subject, and today there are those who know more clearly the great truths which the earlier psychologists only dimly foreshadowed. It is the task of the 20th century mystics to offer a clearer interpretation than has hitherto been given. The first psychologists taught that man possessed an objective side of consciousness and held the subjective side to be endowed with greater power than the objective. But they threw little light on what these two states of consciousness meant. From these earlier teachings, there has evolved the practice in the New Thought world of hobnobbing with one's own subjective mind rather than getting into union with the one mind. We were told that suggestion to our subself or subconscious mind would bring about within us certain well-defined experiences. So while the old thought world prayed to its Jesus, the new thought world suggested to its subconsciousness. It is plain to those seeking to scientifically understand life's finer forces that there are some very finely marked laws in operation. And we cannot go very far in investigation until we find there are many states of consciousness within us with which the ordinary individual is entirely unfamiliar. And following this clue, we come face to face with the fundamentals of universal mind. The psychologists of today see only one substance and find this substance is formed from minute atoms, each atom possessing its own intelligence or atomic mind. Man is the highest point of localized atoms, and he and his environment become a well-marked center of activity within the larger universal world mind. Man's physical body is only a combination of atoms attuned to move at its own vibratory rate. The outer substance is simply a shell, composed of separate points of intelligence. Mind is always clothed in body, and the central undifferentiated atomic stream of intelligence within us is called our spirit, while the outer crusts of this undifferentiated substance are called body, but they are really one substance. There must always be the outside and inside action of every law. So there is no such thing as a body and a spirit. There is only the outside and inside action of universal mind. Our physical cell body is a crust of atomic intelligence, and it's endowed with a brain, nerve centers, and systems of nerves through which the spirit or higher intelligence can play. And within the physical body is another body of much finer substance because it is much more vibrant. And within this finer body or second is a third body of still finer substance, and so on. Each body in turn holding another body, reaching the seventh dimension. There are three bodies with which individuals in the ordinary consciousness become familiar. The others belong to the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh dimensions of consciousness, and only a few on this planet are awake to these states of vibration. Each body is endowed with its centers for expression, and these centers correlate with the brain and nervous centers of the physical body. And when the physical body is polarized and functioning normally, it receives, sends out, is vitalized, and sustained by the energy of the finer etheric intelligence of its inner bodies. Combined with the cell intelligence, these bodies are linked into one by the central intelligence within them, or the one mind. Each body is distinct in itself, yet no one can say, here one begins or here one ends, for they interpenetrate as water does among the grains of sand. The atoms of each body are held in suspension within the fluidic substance of the other bodies. These bodies can be separated and passed out at will by those who know the law, and each one is powerful on the plane with which it has correspondence. And when we know how to manipulate the physical body and its cell consciousness through the consciousness of the other bodies, we produce within the physical body a law of life of which those who are working only with the intelligence of the physical consciousness know nothing. These bodies are held together, centralized into one point in the solar plexus of the physical side. What the older psychologists fondly called the subconscious mind is nothing but the inner second body and its accompanying state of consciousness. This body is called by those who name it the psychic self. When one can function in this part of his consciousness and has become acquainted with this self, he is more powerful in his physical body. Suggestions to the subconscious mind did this much good. They vitalized the activity of the psychic mind and body and rendered more possible its power to manifest through the physical self. For while suggesting, the student was, to a small degree, suspending operation of his lower state of consciousness or his physical objective mind, giving more positive expression to his finer forces. The psychic body manifests through the centers of the physical brain. The solar plexus, with the higher concept centers of the physical brain, acting as the switchboard where connection is made for consciousness, holds all force intact. All the diseases of the world, except accidental wounds, fractures, and septic infections, are simply the discordant association between the physical body, its centers, and the bodies within it. When this refraction takes place, the ego cannot register its finer intelligence, and the physical body becomes the plaything of its own cell intelligence, made more discordant by the spasmodic registrations of the higher mind. It is known only too well that back of all the well-known conditions such as nervous prostration, temporary insanity, nervous disorders such as psychasthenia, neurasthenia, neurogenia, heart troubles with mental symptoms, morbid forebodings and despondency, mania and goiter, there lurks the abnormal activity of the psychic body, separating the physical body from the natural flux of power. There are two avenues through which disassociation is brought about. One is through the objective mind by negative, destructive thinking, and the other through the emotions by giving way to negative, inharmonious feelings. Our thoughts are the things which vibrate our physical body, and our emotions are the things which vibrate our psychic bodies. And on the thought will depend the character of the emotion. And an over-intensified psychic feeling will depolarize our flesh. It can be seen that when the association between the psychic self and the physical self has been disturbed, suggestion of the conscious mind to the subconscious is really only a choosing of such a quality of thinking as will reestablish a natural vibratory law between the psychic and physical centers. The link of harmony is conscious, constructive mental activity, which is bound to be followed by harmonious reaction. When we talk to our sub-self or sub-mind, we are only talking to our objective consciousness and getting our own physical cell intelligence ready to receive the psychic message. And when we can suspend the action of our own objective mind and send our thoughts and feelings straight into the idea centers of our sub or psychic self, we thus connect the two bodies, and the psychic mind sends the energy back again into our physical cells, and they respond accordingly. Suggestion to the submind is the simple act of suspending our common thinking altogether and giving the ego or spirit a chance to speak and register through our solar plexus on our objective mind and physical body the higher vibratory power. Then, when we turn back to common thinking, we find our human mind illumined with a glory not its own, and we come after a while to trust our human convictions to the uttermost. For with the touch of our finer states of consciousness, into which we can pass at will, we feel our own consciousness becomes God enshrined. When we know our own physical self and master all its laws and live in our physical body as a king, we feel we are conquerors on the physical plane. But when we find our psychic self and master all its laws and correlate all its power and pour it through the physical body, adding to this our own natural physical and mental power, then we are greater still and ready to say, I know. When we can suspend or link these two states of consciousness at will, we can pass into the supraconscious self and the higher dimensions still waiting for us, and feel the full relationship with our other selves, passing all our attenuated energy through the psychic and physical body, bringing all the energy of the inner selves to bear upon our physical environment. Then we are conscious of our power and can speak as one having authority. In making suggestions to what we called our subconscious mind, we were babes in wisdom, for then we were holding the thought all the time and trying to make the psychic self do what it already could not choose but do, if we only gave it the chance. In this new understanding, we simply let the thought hold us. We suspend our mixed inharmonious mental currents until they are vibrated into unity with the finer states of consciousness within the self. Then we are become not only the holder, but the thing held. With this knowledge, the student no longer spends time with a part of himself which is already finished, but he learns to normally relate himself, all his atomic consciousness, with his ego or his own higher constructive mind, and through his ego and his physical solar center, he has a direct touch with the universal mind. And then intelligence pours through all the states of consciousness within him, and his life becomes marked with a newfound power. He is sick and wants to be healed. He realizes that disease is nothing but inharmonious vibrations he is registering within his cell sense, and he stops his tense, common mind and finds another state of consciousness. No one can pass into his higher dimensions of being until he has learned concentration enough to stop thinking when he pleases, and to think of what he pleases for any length of time. Does he want a new environment? He realizes again that his environment is made of the same thought substance as his body, and has the same psychic force and intelligence within it, and that if he will stamp the atoms in space around him with the thought of harmony, sending out from his common thinking mind only vibrations of rhythm, then suspend his thinking and let the finer energy permeate and express through every physical atom. It will not be long until his body and environment will become clothed with atoms corresponding to the higher intelligence under which he is functioning and with which he has gotten up correspondence. Man is a complete being. He has evolved through all the kingdom for many, many ages. He has within him derivatives from every plane from which he has evolved. He has latent centers which relate him with those from which he must yet derive. One by one, as he passes through the different dimensions of being, the lower centers of activity atrophy within him from disuse, and one by one, as he approaches the latent dimension of consciousness which must become expressed, he becomes aware of the awakening of new and unknown powers. As man approaches the time for higher experiences in universal intelligence, he finds the psychic self feebly asserting its existence, and he has new and unrelated experiences in his solar plexus center. And from this faint knowledge, men in the past projected the first instruction for its unfoldment and called it subconscious mind. Man is a magnet, and he cannot escape feeling and knowing that he is played upon by all magnetic, etheric, radiant, and celestial currents of the universe, and that they flow through him like the current flows along the line. And he, by giving harmonious response to the play of forces upon him, is unfolded into deeper states of understanding. The subconscious mind and the play of suggestion helped many on their way to fuller harmony, but an understanding of the psychic self and its power will pass the race into a world of liberty so great that it can become unlimited in its everyday world. The common mind of man may here and now become illumined through conscious contact with the wider dimensions of consciousness within himself. When he passes into union with this law, he transcends the dimensions of the common and subconscious mind and swings out into an orbit of extended power which is only bounded by his own realizations. End of chapter 4 of The Psychology of the Solar Plexus and Subconscious Mind by Julia Seton, M.D.